Not all sportsbooks are created equal, and if you're using the wrong one, you're literally giving away money on every single bet that you place. So in this video, I'm going to show you the top 5 sportsbooks that I personally use for sports betting, and the one type of book that most sports bettors default to that's absolutely killing their ROI. Number 5 is going to be Bet Online AG. So this sportsbook is offshore, so you can access this anywhere in the States. No matter where you are, it's available to you. That's why this is even on my list to begin with, because you could access it anywhere. Now, key factors that I use here for this sportsbook are SGPs, which are the same game parlays, and also alternate props, which would be player props. Okay? And to do that, you would go to, so when you go on the sportsbook, you'll go to Prop Builder. A lot of people have trouble finding that on there, but that's where you would go on this sportsbook to be able to find that. The only reason I really use this, like I said, is because of this right here, okay? It's offshore and you could use it anywhere. That's the only reason I didn't, if this wasn't offshore, then this wouldn't be on the list. I'll just put it that way, okay? But when you need a sportsbook to use and you're in like Texas or California, stuff like that, this is one where you could at least get some same game parlays down and you could find alternate props. Now let's go ahead and get to number 4. Number 4 is going to be Caesars, okay? Now, this sportsbook obviously is not allowed everywhere, only in states where it's legal, okay? Not allowed everywhere, so that's the one downside to it. But what I use Caesars for now is primarily for baseball, okay? Primarily for MLB. And I'm going to explain exactly what bets inside Caesars that you use for MLB that are actually the reason why you should have this sportsbook, okay? So, pitcher props, for example. If we go to pitcher props, what you're going to find here that you won't find really on other sports books is total hits allowed, okay? Total hits allowed by a pitcher. You're not going to find this in a lot of sports books, okay? And trust me, actually, Caesars might be the only one that actually offers this most of the time. But this is a big prop here in baseball that you could use to exploit a bad pitcher that's pitching against a good team. And this is the only area where you could find it, because the reason why total hits allowed, you're not just doing the traditional number that the sportsbook gives you, okay? You're doing an alternate line on that number. And this is the only sportsbook that lets you do the alternate line. Yes, every other sportsbook might give you just a straight up line, a -110 line for this prop, but the alternate number, to be able to change it, it's not going to be allowed everywhere, okay? They're not going to have it on all your other sportsbooks. So Caesars actually has this. So this is primarily where I use for Caesars, for that, and for another thing as well, for total outs by a pitcher, okay? That means if they're going to pitch 5 innings, 6 innings, 7 innings, whatever that is. And again, that's for an alternate number. So this is one of the only sports books that actually allow that as well, okay? They allow the alternate number for you to be able to have pitcher outs. And then there's one more aspect here that is big as well, which is not just for a pitcher, but for a hitter. Okay, hitters under 1.5 hits, which is a prop I love to do in baseball. Okay, this right here is only available actually at Caesars. This is another one that's only available there. Okay, it's very hard to find this prop, but that's where you find it. You'll find it at Caesars. So that is exactly why Caesars comes in at number 4, and primarily you will use this during the summer for MLB. Now let's go ahead and get to number 3. Number 3 is going to be FanDuel. Okay, again, this is obviously one that everybody knows, right? But same thing as Caesars here. It's not allowed everywhere, okay? Which isn't a bad thing, but I always like to state that so that way everybody knows, okay? California, Texas, you're not allowed to get on FanDuel and stuff like that. But it's allowed in the states where it is legal. Now, what I do like to use FanDuel for is the NBA, okay? And I like to do the alternate point rebound assist prop, okay? This is where I like to use the NBA alternate points, rebounds, assist prop at FanDuel, okay? Because not too many other sportsbooks actually allow this prop. They don't really have it, okay? FanDuel is one that does have that prop, and it does become very profitable for the NBA. So that is one that you definitely need to have if you are betting on the NBA. Now here as well, you could also use in the NBA for single props, okay? Which are also alternate lines as well. So, you know, single points, single rebounds, single assists. I also use FanDuel for that as well. Now coming in at number 2, going to be DraftKings. Another sports book that mostly everybody knows about, okay? Same thing here applies, not allowed everywhere, but is allowed in legal sports betting states as well. Now what I like to use DraftKings for, there's a a bunch of stuff that I actually like to use DraftKings. Okay, first thing is for golf, okay, for players to make the cut, okay. This is one of the only sports books that allow that, okay. I think Caesars allows that too. Sometimes you'll find it on there, but DraftKings primarily is where you'll find that at, okay. Not too many other sports books allow that. Same game parlay, okay. This is where you'll primarily find the area to do this, okay. I use this for the NBA strategy that I've showed you guys, the baseball strategy that I showed you guys for the same game parlay. This is primarily where you'll do that at, okay. DraftKings is where you will be able to find this consistently for the lines for the NBA, for the NBA single player props that you could smash together on a same game parlay, and then MLB where you can put together home run props and stuff like that, okay? This is primarily the area where I'll go for that for DraftKings. And then the same as FanDuel, but I prefer DraftKings numbers most of the time, but single props as well, all right? Not just in the NBA, but in baseball too, okay? So NBA, MLB. FanDuel's better for the NFL, to be honest. FanDuel's a bit better for the NFL, but I'll also use the NFL here too for single prop alternate lines, okay? MLB, for example, the ones that are available here that like aren't available on Caesars are the alternate strikeouts. Okay, that's one for baseball that is primarily available at DraftKings, and then I don't really find it too many other places. The alternate strikeouts, okay, not just this regular strikeout line, but the alternate one. And then NFL, DraftKings is good for all those single plays, you know, QB passing yards, running back rushing yards, receiver receiving yards, stuff like that. NBA is good for the points, rebounds, assists, not the combined, but the points, rebounds, and assists, single props, okay, where you could alternate those lines and you can, you know, adjust that accordingly to what you want. So DraftKings is a big one that I use for a lot of decent stuff. Now, before I get to number one, I do want to explain one thing that is very important to have multiple sports books, okay? Just because I showed you a list of 5 doesn't mean that's where you stop. You should have access to all the sports books that are available to you. So that way you could line shop. And also what I've shown you here is there's some sports books that have props that some others don't. So it's nice to have that variety so you know that you're not missing out on certain plays or whatnot. And also if you get limited or you get banned at a sports book, you can move on to the next one. Such an example is FanDuel I like to use, but I've had to use multiple accounts because I keep getting banned from FanDuel. So that's a whole different story to get into on how to make different accounts and stuff like that. But that is how you can ensure that you have another sports book to move to and you know what props to do within that. So let's go ahead and get to number one now. Number one is going to be one that came in recently, okay? And that's going to be Kalshi, all right? Now, here's the thing. People are going to look at that and be like, how is that, like, why would that be your number one? Well, there's a huge reason behind this, okay? There's actually 2. So first one's going to be, it's allowed everywhere, unlike traditional sports books, right? And this isn't a sports book. Kalshi isn't a sports book. It's peer-to-peer, okay? It's pretty much like pari-mutuel, where it's like horse racing or like poker, where you're going against everybody else. You're not going against a central sportsbook system, okay? It's allowed everywhere. So this is where it's coming into play, because if you're in California, you're in Texas, you're in places that you can't have access to DraftKings, FanDuel, all those other sportsbooks that I showed, well, guess what? You can have access to this. Now, the biggest part for me is this. There's no limits, okay? There's no limits at this at all, at this prediction market. There's none. It just depends on how much volume is in the play that you're doing, okay? That's what it comes down to. It comes down to how much volume is in there. If there is millions of dollars in a volume pool of a bet that you're going to put in, you can bet upwards as much as you want, and there's no getting banned, there's no getting limited, there's none of that. You can bet as much as you want on Kalshi as long as the volume is there, which is huge because that's the biggest problem with sportsbooks, because sportsbooks will limit you when you start winning, and you can't bet hefty amounts of money because they will limit you or they will ban you. Where that's completely different here with Kalshi, okay? There's no limits, and depending on the volume, you're able to bet as much as you want. Now, of course, you got to use your bankroll management to make sense to that, but I'm just saying, if you do have a hefty bankroll, this is where you could exploit that at, where you could bet $5,000 a game, $10,000 a game, $20,000 a game, as long as you have a bankroll to supplement it, obviously, but this is where you could do it at, okay? Now, what plays can you find on Kalshi? Can't find every single play, okay? Everything that I went through, prop-wise, you can't find every single one, all right? But there are some that you can find on here. And what you could primarily use it for is alternate totals, alternate spreads, money line plays, okay? So if you're betting on a team just to win, you know, this is, like I said, the reason why you primarily do that here is because there's no limits. You could bet as much as you want, okay? When it was the national championship, you could literally have bet $10, $20 million on that game, whereas Sportsbook's not going to allow you to do that. But you could have did that because the volume on that game was like 250 million, almost 300 million was being wagered inside that game. And that's where you could exploit, put as much down as you want. You can also use this for UFC, okay? UFC, you could do money lines and to not go the distance, NGD, not go the distance bets. You could do that stuff on there as well. As the same thing as DraftKings FanDuel as well, you could do alternate single props, okay? The alternate single props you could use in the NBA, the NFL. Baseball is a little bit limited, okay? Baseball, you could do the strikeouts, okay? That's about all you could really do within baseball. And hits, you could do hits within baseball. And the home runs you can do, but you can't put them together. So there's not really too much value there. There's not too many people that are betting for a player to hit a home run and to not hit a home run. The volume really isn't there on that. But there's a hefty bit of things that you could do on Kalshi where you're not limited. And as long as the volume is there, you can get hefty money down, okay? So this comes in at number one because this one right now can make the most money for sure, okay? You have the right system down and you have the right strategy down. You can literally print money from the prediction markets right now. And if you guys want the strategies that I use day in and day out to be able to print money from all these sports books, make sure you guys click the link in the description. Now let's get to the sports books that a lot of people use and I don't even touch, and the reason why. All right, first one is going to be Prize Picks. This is a big one, okay? A lot of people use this because it is allowed everywhere. But here's the problem. This is allowed everywhere, but it forces you to at least have to do a 2-leg parlay, okay? You have to. Literally forces you to do at least a 2-leg parlay. And the problem here is, most of the time, you can't get the alternate numbers down to what gives you the highest percentage, okay? Most of the time you can't. Most of the time it won't allow you to get down to that. So what gives you the highest probability percentage and gives you an edge, it won't let you get all the way down to that number, okay? It conveniently gives you probably 1 or 2 above that gives you a negative edge. And then what do? You have to smash those two together, and the next thing you know, you have a negative edge that you're just reoccurring over time, all right? This is one that people love to do. I don't even touch because you're literally betting negative value and negative edge constantly on there because you're wedging 2 plays together that don't have high probability because they won't give you that line. And they do that on purpose because why would they? Why would they give you an edge being able to parlay, okay? And they know everybody loves to parlay as well, so they exploit that. So you could do what? Up to 10 legs on there where you could smash them all together. And they use a lot of tactics in this industry where it's like influencers and stuff like that to show like they're making millions of dollars. They're not. Nobody's making millions of dollars on Prize Picks. They're just not. They're not doing it. Nobody's winning consistently with Prize Picks. And the one that is hand in hand with this as well is Underdog. Okay? Underdog's the same thing. Literally the same thing. They go hand in hand here. They're both the same exact type of platform. Okay? Both of these companies have reached out to me multiple times trying to do sponsorships and all that. Every single influencer has taken up, yeah, I'll promote Prize Picks, I'll promote that. Guess what? I did not because I'm not a sellout, first off, and I'm not going to promote something that I don't use, okay? I don't use this because you can't make real money with this. You just can't. Long term, you're not going to be able to profit from using these type of sports books. You're not. It's just something to do for entertainment, and most of the generation right now is blowing their money on these type of platforms rather than making money on the ones that I showed you before. As always, I'm Frank with Linemaker Sports. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, I'm out.